cross country is D3, so we don't offer any scholarship money. So it's just you come. I tell everybody you run for food because we get we run, we go have a good meal afterwards, and we come back home.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us specifically, we compete against Central Carolina, Patrick and Henry, Rockingham, and I just lost.
So it's not necessarily community colleges.
Oh, it is.
It's all community.
It's all community
okay.
colleges. Yeah. And I can't believe I forgot the fourth one. But yeah, and around us like Cleveland, they have a cross country program, but they're Division II. So we may go to the same meets and run with Cleveland, but we don't specifically compete against Cleveland because we.
And the difference between 2 and 3?
2 offer scholarship money.
I got you.
Yep.
Okay. So what? I just looked this up. You're in the NJCAA Region 10.
Yes.
National Junior. I guess that stands for National.
It goes a little wonky sometimes. So hit the region information and
Region 10 Network. Member sport participation list.
There's the list. And then if you'll scroll down about halfway, you'll see where it says cross country.
Gotcha. Okay. So Gaston participates in women's cross country Division 1.
Right, because they give full scholarships. And
Gotcha.
He's got a good program he started, and they did really well this weekend.
Yeah, that's Gaston, Lewisburg, Spartanburg Methodist. And then Division 2 is Cleveland, being Cleveland Community College, Northeastern, Richard Bland. Division 3, you guys, is Catawba Valley, Central Carolina, Patrick Henry, Rockingham, and Southwest Virginia.
That's the one I forgot, Southwest Virginia.
And I'm not familiar with those. I'm assuming they're not all. I'm assuming Rockingham is in North Carolina, but in Central Carolina. Where is Central Carolina? Is that one outside Monroe? Is that what I'm thinking about? Not Sand Hills. That's on further down.
Yeah, I believe it is. They're the Panthers, and I just
and Patrick Henry
is up in Virginia. It's
okay.
Martinsville.
Okay.
We actually go by the Speedway when I have to drive the bus for.
Yeah,
basketball.
I see like men's golf. I see some teams that I recognize: Davidson, Davie County, Surrey, Sand Hills, which is down in Sanford, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Are there more and more? I taught at Gaston for 5 years, and Gaston, when it first started, had some sports, and then it got away from it, and I don't know why, because I know Dr. Henshaw's done a great job adding sports at CVCC, and now that there's a new president at Gaston, he has done the same thing. There is value to that because it gives kids an opportunity to continue that maybe aren't those D1, D2, D3, 4-year athletes.
Exactly.
Gives them an opportunity to compete, and if they're going to school anyway,
right, it's
not costing any more, to do it, and they can still compete.
Yeah, and I think the reason why in North Carolina sports had went away for a little while at the community college is there's no state funding for athletics at the community college. All programs are basically self-support by fundraisers. So like we have the big golf tournament in September that raises a whole lot of money for all of our athletics, basketball, baseball, softball, volleyball, all, because it all comes from donations and sponsorships. Like this spring, I'm hoping to put on a 5K to generate money, for the same thing. So, I was lucky. Cross country doesn't cost much from a startup standpoint. We need, tank tops and shorts, so to speak. We always joke about that. But, I had a couple of really great sponsors with, McDonald Dentistry and Kelly Stewart, he does Farm Bureau. They just said, oh, great, you're doing a program. How can we help? And, they jumped in and helped.
I'm curious, and here again, I don't know the inner workings, but like there's no state money, but like, for example, most community colleges have foundations.
Right, and that's what it comes from.
And I'm wondering if that's how Gaston got their funding was from the foundation, because the foundation used to fund their radio stations. So there were things that are outside that the foundation would chip in and help. I mean, because that's what it was there for. Right. much like alumni groups at four-year universities, that's how you get your scholarships is from those alumni groups that contribute money and donations.
Exactly. Yeah, the foundation for CVCC is just absolutely awesome. I mean, they do a lot of philanthropic stuff as well as, supporting athletics and other, special projects that don't fit into the parameter of all the general statute state budget stuff. If it's something that's good for students, the foundation will figure out a way to help make it happen.
Yeah, and of course the fundraisers, and I'm sure that in the past there has not been an athletic push for alumni for donations and those kind of things like you have at four-year universities. But as that's changing, and I was looking here because I wasn't sure and I wasn't going to put you on the spot at how many sports CVC has now, but they have baseball, bass fishing, beach volleyball, cross country, esports, men's basketball, softball, women's basketball, and volleyball. That's a pretty good slate to offer. And here again, from bat ball sports to running to esports, which is completely, that's all. And it's amazing that still happens. And bass fishing. Yep. And that's really caught on. And if I'm not mistaken, CVCC was kind of high up in the rankings with the bass fishing. They've done pretty well.
Yeah, we I think we finished in the top 20 last year. I think we've had some fishers finish in the top 10 and some other things. But the interesting thing about bass fishing is kind of like when we go to meets for cross country, we show up and run against who's ever there. So we'll go D1 four-year school down to D3 where we are. Same thing with bass fishing.
But scores are computed inside your division?
We computed inside our division. But like bass fishing, though, scores are just straight across the board. So they're fishing against Alabama.
Oh, I know. I've seen.
They're fishing against some of these big schools, and we're taking them down. I mean, I got to give, shout out to the bass program because they are really doing awesome. I mean, when they say they're ranked nationally, it's not just nationally.
Yeah, it's with the big boys.
It's with the big boys.
Yeah.
And so, they're doing great.
And I know there have been a few kids that from the bass fishing side that have, once they did their 2 years here, they got picked up and went into some smaller four-year universities to continue. That's another thing that I think is a wonderful stepping stone, whether it's your sport or anybody else, is the ability for these kids to come and participate here, and they may get picked up by somebody else and get a little scholarship money, or at least be able to continue to participate for 2 more years while continuing their education.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things that when I'm recruiting seniors now that I've been to a bunch of cross-country meets, I've got a couple of kids from Ford who said they want to come, a couple of kids from Hickory said they want to come, talking to a couple of guys from Maiden, a girl from Maiden. Like I said, I don't want to mention names to embarrass anybody. Sure. But it's real neat to say when you look at their times and you say, look, here's your time compared to if you went to the national championship race. How would you finish? There's most top runners around here. They would, if I could get them together as a team, we would win D3 conference year after year after year. I mean, they're so much faster than a lot of the competition because, at the D3 level, since you're not getting any money, you're going to the school for the program. And if you happen to run, that really helps out. But I always tell the kids, you're really good. Nothing says recruit me if you want to go to a D1 school, a four-year school, then, hey, I'm the champion. How'd you like to be the regional champion? Right. Because 4 of the kids I'm talking to right now, if they were to be on my team, they would be the #1 runner D3 in the region.
Well, and the other thing about that, and a lot of kids don't think about that, I know it was kind of some of the kids figured it out when Charlotte started their football program. Those first kids that come in, they set the records because there's none there.
Exactly.
And then you can either break your own or your record may stand for a while if you're a good athlete until somebody else comes along through the program. So I can see where there's a lot of pluses to that, and especially if I can't imagine there's a huge recruitment of cross-country or some of these other what I call what's the word I'm looking for? They're not the money sports like a football or a basketball.
Right.
There's a term for that. But anyway, you're not going to get recruited a lot because they don't have any money to spend.
Yep.
And so being able to go somewhere, stay close to home, and then kind of control what you do, and then maybe be able to move to the next level. I just think it's a wonderful opportunity, and you're able to sit here in a kind of a controlled group because there's a lot of really good cross-country programs.
I call it my running donut.
Yeah.
If you take Catawba County and get all the counties that touch us with, Caldwell, Alexander, Iredale. I don't go into Gaston. I just respect his area. I mean, I could go down there, but in Cleveland, there's a couple of kids have come talk to me because they were looking at a specific program that you have.
They don't have
at
Cleveland.
Offer.
That's correct.
And so so I'm respectful of my other coaches because we're not we're not trying to.
And there's plenty of athletes out there.
Exactly. Yeah. And we just we want to help kids. I mean, that's what I tell everybody.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad said, look, honestly, I really would love for your kids to run for me, but in the long term, it doesn't matter. My goal is to help these kids not peak in high school. This spring I went out handing out, here's how you do the FAFSA to any senior at any cross-country meet I would go to. I'd find the parents, you got a senior in your house. Look, I don't care what your kid's doing. Here's how you do the FAFSA. And they're like, well, that's really nice of you. I said, well, look, I've been in education 30 years. My wife, Ellen's we've been in for 30 years. We know how education works, and it took us forever to fill out the FAFSA. So
still does. I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore.
So if we can help out, we've kind of made it our mission to help kids not peak in high school. It's kind of a running joke.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff Taylor. Non-revenue sports. I couldn't for some reason. I drew just a brain blank there. Todd Wimberly wanted to tell you congratulations. Richie says that Central Carolina Community College is in Sanford.
Okay. Thank you.
Sandhills is down there kind of close to, if I'm not mistaken. I guess it was Central Carolina I went to some training one time when I was teaching at Gaston. We went to some training for some networking stuff that was going on. Mention some of your kids that you've got and anything particular to the program that you'd like folks to know about.
Well, like you said before, being the first to set the records, that's Allison Beard from Bandy's. She was my first signee, period, ever. So she was the very first one. So she's the first girl, the first signee, and all the female records she owns.
Right.
And so, and the great thing is not just with her, but with everybody improved every race. That's all I can hope for. Preston, he finished up being our fastest. He was the number 2 at the race, and then there was Ryan Eblin, and he was second. Nick Scholl was third. And then Tim Flanagan, he was my baseball player who came in and helped. And then Patrick Sakata, he played soccer at Ford and ran track at Ford, and he came in and helped. And those were the last 2 guys that finished out the team. And so they said they were done. They said, "Oh my gosh, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be."
Yeah.
But they were in good shape. They're athletes.
Right.
But when you don't run regularly, more than a couple of miles, just training and stuff, doing that 3rd and 4th and 5th mile. I mean, they were out there toughing it out. They were doing great, but it was definitely a stretch for their athletic.
And cross country courses, how long?
For ladies, it's a 5K, so it's just regular 5K like you'd run around town, and for men, it's 8K, so which is 5 miles.
Okay.
And so it
differs from high school.
Yeah, high school they usually run a 5K as well.
Okay.
For men and women.
Okay.
But in college, the men run an 8K, which is 5 miles. Which, like I said, it's as long as you train for it and you build up to it, it's just a different set of pacing, and because you would run a little harder for your 5K, so you'd run out with say a 6-minute mile, where which is not really fast for a 5K athletically, but for D3, if you run out about a 6-minute mile, you're going to end up in about 30 minutes. Preston, he finished in 32 minutes, so he was just a little over a 6-minute mile. And so that's why I tell everybody, if you're a good top runner here in the Catawba County Donut, you can be very, very competitive at the D3 level for community college.
Yeah. Cody said, go Red Hawks. Good morning, Cody. Chris Winkler wanted to congratulate you, Jeff Taylor as well. So moving forward, do you have in here again, because I've never dealt on this level, do y'all have dead periods? Can you talk to kids all the time?
Because I'm D3.
And there's no scholarships, you can probably do what you want to?
I can talk pretty much whenever I want. And I double-checked with Nick just to make sure, because I don't want to, don't get yourself in trouble if you don't have to. But now is signing period for us. November 1st was signing period. And so I tell prospectives, look, I'm going to talk with you and your parents before we do anything. I said, if you want to come to CVCC, great. If you want to run, even better. If you are going to run, let's get you a letter of intent, get your picture in the paper, do the whole signing day thing. Let's make it big. It's your life. Let's celebrate it.
And Kim wanted to congratulate too with Go Red Hawks, and I just think it's wonderful to have the community college. Caldwell's had sports forever.
Right.
A guy that I played basketball against back in high school, which is almost 45 years ago, he was one of the first coaches up there not long after he got out. And Cleveland was a little slow to get into it. Now they're into it. Catawba Valley has been one that has been a little more of a leader in getting the sports program started over the years. Where do you guys run home meets? Do you have a place to run?
We don't have a home meet.
Okay.
So what I do is I find meets nearby. I usually, I can always, I think the farthest we went away was Columbia. So we've raced in Spartanburg and Columbia, Salisbury. So we go to where the meets are.
Okay.
Hopefully, this is one of the things that I've talked with the Hickory City planning person, whose name I cannot remember, very nice young lady, about we need to have a place here. I've always thought, if we could build into the Trivium complex a course, because like when we went to Spartanburg, we ran around the Milliken complex, and there's enough green area, and just cut out a course where we can have stuff, and then we could host meets for us. LR could use it to host meets. The high schools could host meets and charge admission to help get money back to the cross country thing. Whoever shows up, divide up the
those type of event centers, because they're kind of unique. They're not used a tremendous amount.
Right.
They could be multifunction things for walking trails and all those kind of things. And I think it would be a big thing for communities, and not a whole lot of upkeep to them.
Exactly, because if it's a walking trail, or if it's something, it's just if a simple. I won't say simple greenway, because there's a lot to go into a greenway from building it.
But everybody's doing them.
Yeah. It's just the biggest thing is just space. It's land. We have great economic development, putting new businesses in all the time, and so the free space is getting used up for more commerce, which is great. It does good things for the county. It's trying to find a space that we can have just specifically for that, to where we could run, and then the community could use it, something else like that.
Bob said, is Jacob Fork Park not large enough? And can you repeat areas, or does it have to be? Well, you can only pass one place one time.
When you're trying to get 5 miles in, and you have to have at least a 10-foot clearance. Most of the track, so that way people can pass and run. For cross-country meets, the best surface is usually either a grass or a packed natural surface. Like when LR did a few years ago, they went over to Southside, and they had to reroute and put extra cones, and they had to kind of go up the hills and all the other stuff. So for training purposes, Jacobs Fork would be great, but for have a big meet where we have hundreds of runners and all the other stuff, it's just you need to have a little more space on the.
And I'm not. Where is Jacobs Fork Park? Because I'm not familiar with that.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, it's the one right near the Target Distribution Center. If that's the Jacobs Fork Park I'm thinking of.
Yep. And they got softball fields and some stuff down in there too, if I remember right.
That one's more of a biking trail.
Okay.
And there's room around it, but it's not really designed to handle. And if that's not the Jacobs Fork Park I'm thinking of, then
Bob will let me know.
Bob will let us know. Thank you.
Cody said, and we talked about this earlier, community colleges can't use state dollars for athletics. 4-year colleges and universities can, so we rely on support from partners and community to keep going. Currently raising funds through E-Team Sponsor to help support our programs. If anyone's interested in helping, please send me a message. Cody, if you can give us a link, if you can just post a link on here, that would be great. And I'm the first one to tell you, I've got kids that my kids played with that went on to CVCC and other places, and I get those emails where they're doing, I need to raise $500 through my GoFundMe or whatever. And, I hate that they have to do that, but I understand it, so that's why I'm willing to help when they do that, because I'm just excited to see them, moving on to the next level. It's a Hickory City Park off 121 and Old Shelby Road. Is that on the backside of the golf course, Bob, kind of, across from the Jacobs Fork River? If I'm thinking right, that's kind of where it is. You remember the old Jacobs Fork golf course behind I guess it's not behind Walgreens, but behind the Lowe's on 127.
Yeah,
there was a golf course back in there.
Yeah, and
I think it went all the way down
Frisbee Park.
Yes,
now.
It went down to the river, and I think where Bob's talking about is on the opposite side of the river that you get to it from 40, if I'm not mistaken. Anything else you want to share with us?
Let's see. Now, I've talked about the golf tournament. Thank my sponsors, Kelly Stewart and McDonald Dentistry. And Cody's piped in with please send us money.
It's hard, and it's hard on everybody. And the biggest thing you do, and you remember, you're doing it for the kids. Oh, yeah. I mean, because that's what it's about. That's what it's all about. I appreciate you stopping by, sir. We'll take a time out. We come back. Juju will join us on a recorded interview when we return right after a couple of, just like I do, some sponsor things from our sponsors.
Untangling your headphones, finding the right remote, saying goodbye to your favorite shirt that hasn't fit in 10 years. Why are simple things sometimes so complicated? Thankfully, with Auto Owners, insurance doesn't have to be one of them. Auto Owners works with independent agents who live in your community and answer when you call, so you can worry about more important things, like finding a new favorite shirt. That's simple human sense.
Call Mooney Insurance in Maiden or East Lincoln Insurance in Denver, or visit mooneyinsurance.com.
Times convenience stores are more than convenient. They're your neighborhood store, your store. With locations in Lincoln, Catawba, Gaston, Iredell, and Mecklenburg counties, there's one near you. Times convenience stores have the right items at the right price, from snacks, cold drinks, and light meals from the grill, and there's always a special to save you time and money. Times has what you need. Times convenience stores, there's one near you. Regardless of where you're going, there's one on your way. Remember, there's always time to stop by Times. Have you thought about when you would like to retire? One of your major assets is planning for retirement is time, and you lose a little of it each day. The longer you wait to start accumulating capital for retirement, the harder it's going to be. How should you plan for retirement? Start by calculating approximately how much capital you will need at retirement, then estimate how much you will have to put away each year. Finally, carefully choose the investments in which you will invest. Stiefel Nicholas can assist you. Call 4 Rembert today at 828-624-7300. Stiefel Nicholas, member SIPC, and the New York Stock Exchange.
First Federal Savings Bank has been serving Lincoln County since 1940. And as it has been from the beginning, customer service is a priority to First Federal Savings Bank. They want to get to know you by name. First Federal Savings Bank has the convenience, the products, and the services that the larger banks have, but with hometown people that you see throughout your community. Stop in and visit one of their 4 convenient locations and see what First Federal Savings Bank has to offer you. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Whether it's a sit-down meal or a call-in for the drive-thru, Brookwood Cafe and Catering is the answer. A variety of meats, vegetables, and desserts cooked daily, or a hot sandwich from the grill, they have what you're looking for to satisfy your taste buds. If you need catering from 5 to 500, Brookwood has you covered as well. Stop by Brookwood Cafe and Catering at 202 Providence Mill Road in Maiden. Don't forget breakfast daily till 11 a.m. Open Tuesday 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., Wednesday through Saturday 6 a.m. till 8 p.m., and Sunday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Call 828-428-8944 to place your order today.
Covenant Church began as a vision of just over 100 people in 1984. Since then, Covenant Church has grown and currently located at 2168 Gastonia Highway in Lincoln. The Sunday schedule includes early morning worship at 8:30, Sunday school at 9:45, and morning worship at 10:45. Their ministries extend beyond Sunday. Visit their website at www.covenantchurch.church to see all they have to offer, and better yet, stop by and see for yourself. Covenant Church may be just what you're looking for a new church home.
If you ask around, you'll find Burke Mortuary has a reputation for excellence and commitment to value. They've built a reputation of trust for more than 35 years. Burke Mortuary is proud to offer personal attention, meaningful tributes, and the area's most affordable prices. They're also proud to offer you beautiful, state-of-the-art facilities. It's the perfect place to honor your loved one. So when choosing a funeral home, the choice is easy. Choose Burke Mortuary with locations in Maiden and Newton.
In the best of times, no one is more deserving of every opportunity, encouragement, and support than the youth in our communities. Parents, teachers, coaches, and sponsors struggle to stretch their budgets to continue help. Communities need a team effort. Times Oil Corporation, a longtime member of the community, established the Times Educational Alliance Mission, or Team Foundation. Since 2011, over $125,000 in grants have been donated in the community. Times Oil and the Team Foundation are proud to be community partners.
Wednesday, back where we used to have Juju, because I'm not playing golf at the moment, but that's okay. That's going to change. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, that's going to change, but since wintertime's coming on, I'll probably do it later. We'll be okay anyway. How are you this morning, sir?
Hey, Lanny, I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm good. How about those Phillies blast a record-tying 5 home runs to take a 2-1 lead?
In the World Series, yeah, it's surprising. They've come out of nowhere this year, especially towards the end of the season. They made a managerial change earlier in the year. They were kind of floundering around. All of a sudden, they won a bunch of games, and then they all caught fire, just a lot like the Braves did last year. Mm-hmm. And then they get into the playoffs, and they just continue to win. And they take on a Houston Astros team that most everybody thought that they would be the favorites in maybe 5-6 games, and all of a sudden, they're leading the World Series now 2-1. Interesting that later this week, Lanny, in the NFL, the Thursday night game, the Philadelphia Eagles play at the Houston Texans. Game 5 of the World Series, it's the Houston Astros at the Philadelphia Phillies. So 2 cities are playing each other on the same night. That rarely ever happens anymore in sports.
Wow. How long has it been since we've, and maybe this is not an anomaly, how long has it been since we had a World Series game rain out and get moved like we did this week?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm sure it's probably go a few years. It hasn't been too long, but I don't remember. I really don't know. That's a pretty good question, though. I have no answer to that.
Just curious. Also, you probably saw this. The first rankings came out for the college football playoffs. I'm a little bit surprised, to be quite honest with you. It was Tennessee at number 1, Ohio State at number 2, Georgia number 3, and Clemson number 4. I think I would have flipped. I would have had Tennessee in 3 if it were me. I'd had Ohio State at number 1. And I'm not sure that I wouldn't have had my Tigers at number 5 and Michigan at number 4. But I think the committee's kind of thinking that's going to take care of itself as we go on through the season.
Yeah, I agree. Alabama's standing there at 6 and then TCU at 7. You're right that I think as much football as there is to play, Georgia plays Tennessee this weekend. If Georgia loses, I think they're out completely. They will. You look at their schedule, and there's not much in terms of ranked teams ahead to play. Mm-hmm. If Tennessee wins, or if Tennessee happens to lose that game, they'll have another shot at it, perhaps, to get back up in there. But I think there will be certain teams that'll get, as you say, get knocked in, knocked out. Ohio State and game against Michigan will go a long way in determining who will get one of those two berths, I guess. I doubt it. Both Ohio State and Michigan both get in. I guess they could. But I would guess whoever wins that game late in the season will have a chance. And, Alabama's played a lot of close games this year against teams that, they could have easily had 3 losses. Mm-hmm. And I'm not so sure they're ever going to make the top 4. So, Clemson could continue to beat Notre Dame this weekend and then go on maybe the ACC championship game. Now that they got Syracuse and end up maybe playing the Tar Heels, there's a chance that they can get in the top 4, certainly.
There's an article as well, because everybody's looking at that new possible 12-team format, so they go ahead and do a little bit of speculation here. Here's what it would look like based on this first ranking that came out. Of course, your seeds with byes would be those top 4. They don't have Georgia in the top 4. They've got Tennessee, Ohio State, Clemson, TCU. And then the remaining seeds would be Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, Oregon, Southern Cal, LSU, Ole Miss, and Tulane, which would make the first round games. This would be so interesting, Juju. Tulane at Georgia, yeah, playoff games in home stadiums. I like that. Ole Miss at Michigan, LSU at Alabama, Southern Cal at Oregon. Okay, and then the quarterfinal games would be Southern Cal, Oregon winner takes on Tennessee, LSU, Alabama winner takes on Ohio State, Ole Miss, Michigan winner takes on Clemson, and Tulane, Georgia winner takes on TCU. I like that. I really do.
That's not bad. I'm not so sure Tulane's going to wind up being there, but I could be wrong. I like the idea of having home games for the higher seeded teams. That's a good point.
I just think it would add a lot more to it.
Yeah, we thought a couple of years ago it was easy to pick the top 4 or 5 teams in the country. Now with everything going on in college football, the way things have changed a little bit, maybe parity has set in a little bit. It's a little bit more difficult to pick those top 4 or 5, and maybe a little easier to look at the top 12 or top 10, top 12 teams to set up a playoff like that. I like that idea as well.
Let me give you another thing that's kind of made the headlines. There's 4 more Michigan State players have been suspended after what went on in the tunnel. First of all, you shouldn't have them in the same tunnel. That's the first thing. These are 18, 19-year-old kids with a lot of testosterone, okay? Shouldn't have them in the same tunnel. The next thing I guess I would say is, does this have an impact on Mel Tucker moving forward?
I can't see why not. They gave him a bunch of money last year, and he's struggling this year.
Mm-hmm.
I can't put my head around the idea that all these college football programs that are getting hundreds of millions of dollars from networks can't figure out a way where they can have 2 teams not dressed, not come out in the same tunnel. I mean, they can't have one on one side, one on the other.
Right.
They can't fix a college football stadium with all these hundreds of millions of dollars floating around. They can't fix a stadium where that can happen.
Right.
It's 2022. It's crazy. It really is.
And that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, sometimes, I realize it shouldn't happen. I realize all of those type things. But at the same time, you kind of set yourself up for some disasters from just the things that you're saying, just overlooking little things like this.
It's always happened, Lanny. You go back even Notre Dame and Miami, right? The U, Catholics versus convicts. They had all kind of stuff going on. They've always had that. And when you have, like you said, you got 18, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, you're getting fired up before the game and after the game, all the trash talking that goes on, and they're going and they're sharing an area like that, and they're football players, testosterone out there. It's crazy that this hasn't happened before, and it has happened a little bit, but not to this, amount, because 3 or 4 or 5 more players.
Well, you got 6 total now.
6 total.
Mm-hmm.
So it may get worse, but again, it should hit home to some of the administrators to say, wait a second, guys, let's figure out a way where these teams don't have to bump into each other before or after a game.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The other story I want to get your thoughts on here as we're working through, you saw where Brenton Cox, 5-star recruit, has been dismissed from, I think it was Florida International? No, from Florida. From Florida. He was dismissed. He was they didn't get into it a lot. He started out at Georgia, transferred to Florida under Dan Mullen, but has been released from the team. And they call it, Billy Napier calls it, time to move on from Cox, and said it was a cumulative effect that led to Cox's dismissal, not one incident. You heard about that?
No, I've not. I vaguely heard about it. I didn't go into it. You think that somebody who's moved around in colleges and transferred and gotten into trouble, that he's done something along the lines of, besides not going to class.
No. Here's what happened. He punched the Georgia running back after the running back scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter on Saturday's loss to the Bulldogs.
Oh,
Now, they used to may have been teammates, because he started at Georgia. But he led the team with 8 tackles for loss, redshirt junior. And in 8 games, he had 35 tackles, 2 sacks, and 9 quarterback hurries. Now, he's eligible. He's got enough years in to go to the NFL. Does it hurt his stock trying to make it and get picked up by a team?
I'm sure he does a little bit. Maybe he's a second-day NFL draft pick. Obviously not a first day. I'm sure he's not going to be a number 1 draft pick, but first-round pick. But, yeah, I'm sure it'll hurt his stock a little bit. They'll look into his character issues, wonder why he did what he did, and maybe he wasn't a good practice player either. I'm sure that was the last straw, and then things built up, and that was it. Because if that was a first-time incident, you could probably understand. But I'm sure it's been like you said, a cumulative effect, and that is one reason why they parted ways. And, yeah.
No, I agree.
I'm sure we'll hear from him again when the NFL draft comes around, and then they'll point to this as something that maybe made his draft stock drop.
I would think that he's not going to go to another college program, being he's a redshirt junior.
No, he'll make himself eligible for the NFL draft. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
What else is going on in your world, sir? I've talked too much.
No, that's okay, Landy. I was just, digging deeper a little bit into what the basketball team at LR did recently over the weekend, Sunday. They beat a Louisville team out of the ACC. And today, if you pick up the Hickory Daily Record, they have their first of the game story 3 days after the fact. And they have some pictures and I guess stuff in the paper this morning. But head coach Everett Sullivan, I did have a chance to talk with him yesterday face-to-face. He says it's probably a legacy win. And anytime, it's the first time that a small school like LR beat an ACC team in school history. They've been playing basketball for 101 years at LR. And it's interesting that they played the game without their 2 leading scorers. And they still were able to shut down Louisville in the second half and hold them to 47 points for the game and only 17 points in the second half. Just a remarkable win for LR to beat a team like Louisville. My understanding is, you heard earlier when Appalachian played Texas A&M, they got a big check. LR got a nice check of about 6 figures. Go there and play, and Everett Sullivan, the head coach, is a Louisville grad. He went, and the guy that's coaching Louisville, they were teammates back in the 1980s. So they did him a favor playing an exhibition game, and LR goes in there and wins. But that's not unusual, Lanny. Over the weekend, North Carolina played J.C. Smith, a Division II program. Wake Forest played, I think, Winston-Salem State, another Division II program. So it happens in these exhibition games. But for a Division II team that was under 500 a year ago at 10-18, to go in and win by 10 and dominate the game in the second half is just eye-opening for sure.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that really puts a monkey on a coach's back early in the season.
It does. Well, the coach has just taken over. Louisville's had some issues. They've gone through a couple of coaches, one coach in particular since Rick Pitino was ousted. So I'm sure it's probably, I don't want to say it's a good thing that it happened. If Louisville would have won by 10, maybe people would have started shaking their heads and say, we're not sure. But this way, maybe they have a chance to go back and say, wait a second, guys, this is what can happen if you don't do some of the things we're asking you to do. So maybe this is an eye-opening thing, and they go back to the drawing board and try to turn things around. And for LR, I'm sure there's probably going to be some pressure now. They were picked 6th in the preseason in their own conference, yet they beat an ACC team in an exhibition game. Can they follow that up in the regular season with a more consistent play? Be one of the contenders in the South Atlantic Conference. Can this be a springboard to a good season? I think that's the one big question.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. It's a monkey on the back of both coaches, not just one. Not because Louisville lost, but now you've got it. You've got it with LR for the simple reason that expectations just ramped up a little bit.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I want to leave you on this, Lanny. This quote, maybe you can comment. It has to do with, they say great teams, and bad teams or okay teams. Nobody leads. they don't have any leaders. Average teams or good teams, coaches lead. But on great teams or elite teams, players lead. They police each other. I wonder if we're looking at some of the NFL teams. Do we see that happening with the Panthers? Will they have no leaders? Are we seeing that now with our Steelers, that we're seeing no leaders right now? Maybe the coach is trying to be the leader. But the really good teams and the elite teams, and I don't know if the Panthers have ever had a great team where the players lead each other. That's something to think about going forward.
Juju, to me, I think it's a generational problem because I don't think there's enough of we in today's players. There's too much me, and they're looking out for me, and they don't understand that if I look out for we, then me does better. That was the concept when you and I were coming through, and that was the old school concept. Those thoughts, I agree with you 100% on what you said. And along those same lines, when you talk about respect, you can demand respect or earn respect. Earned respect will get you a lot further than demanded respect. And it's the same thing. You've got to take ownership. I think coaches are managers and navigators of the personalities and the athletes that they're responsible for. I don't think you can have a tremendous amount of success if everything's based on the coach. For the same reason, you can't artificially excite players and motivate players if it doesn't come from within, because eventually that'll wear out.
Yeah, and that's we've seen that with the Panthers. They brought in coaches down through the years that they've just been bad teams, and especially the last couple of years doesn't seem like there was, like you said, there was never any plan. There seems to be no leaders, and they're just kind of floundering around right now. And the Steelers are right now at one of those critical junctures. They're obviously not a great team, but they're maybe just a little above average or a little below average. They're right on teetering on being an average football team. And so they got to think about what they want to do with their coach, all their coaches, including the head coach, about going forward.
Well, the other side of that is, and this is where I think the real problem lies, like with the Panthers, it's not any different. Management has got to buy into a coach that they feel like can get the players motivated. You can bring in the greatest coach. I've always said this, you can bring in the greatest coach, but if you don't have players that are going to buy into it, they can't get it done, because it's the players that get it done.
It is, and they got to believe in the coach. That the coach will try to make them better. They're all great players. They're all really good players once you get to the NFL. They just got to find the right coach that'll make them better.
To borrow a phrase from my good friend Ford Rembert, you got to trust the process and believe in the process. If you don't, you can't get there. It's all superficial.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything else, my friend?
Did you mention about Brett T. Ford's volleyball team losing last night?
I did not. I had not seen that.
Yeah, they lost in straight sets in three games. The 8-time state champion, but they played North Iredell again.
They're real.
Final four. Again, the coach at North Iredell was the coach at Lenore-Ryan for a long time, and Meredith Lombardi was one of his players. So it was the teacher beating the pupil for the second time in the last couple of years in the Final Four. So now North Iredell goes on to the state championships this weekend. But Ford made it close in the first set. I think lost 25-23, and then after that it was kind of all downhill.
That's still a ton of success. Congratulations to the season they had.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, my friend. Have a good one, and we won't catch you next week because I'll be down dancing with Mickey Mouse, but we'll catch you a week after that.
You have a good vacation, guys, and thanks again as always, Lanny. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. Juju Phelps, we'll wrap it up right here on the bottom line. We'll see you tomorrow.